Okay, we are live.
Welcome to the Near Mint Book Club this week. Hi, I'm Mandy. This is Alana. This week we don't have Tommy. We're trying it out where we try to alternate so we can give each other some breaks. So just us two from Near Mint. And this week we have CARA, BILGER. I should know how to say your last name because you're my sister. And we are discussing Umbrella Academy this week, Volume 1. So if you're in the chat, feel free to comment. If you're watching live, if you're not watching live, we'll get to comments after. I guess I can do the synopsis of Umbrella Academy. Let me just pull it up here. So this is from Amazon. This says, in an inexplicable worldwide event, 43 extraordinary children were spontaneously born to women who previously shown no signs of pregnancy. Millionaire inventor Reginald Hargreaves adopted 7 of the children. When asked why, his only explanation was to save the world. These 7 children formed the Umbrella Academy, a dysfunctional family of superheroes with bizarre powers. Their first adventure at the age of 10 pits them against an erratic and deadly Eiffel Tower, piloted by the fearsome zombie robot Gustav Eiffel. Nearly a decade later, the team disbands, but when Hargreaves unexpectedly dies, these disgruntled siblings reunite just in time to save the world once again. So that's the overall synopsis. Now, normally, our guest would be the one who chose the book, but this time, in a effort to make my sister write an article, I was like, what's the one comic I think she would jive best with? And we had conversations about season 1. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to make her read Umbrella Academy. So although she didn't quite pick this, we've dragged her into this book club because we knew she read it and wanted to hear her thoughts. She also wrote an article this week in the newsletter. So you should check it out because it's really awesome. So CARA, if you want to do a little intro, about yourself.
Yeah. My name is CARA. I'm currently a stay-at-home mom, and I like to do makeup, and I like drawing baby. I don't know.
Don't we all?
I'm just, yeah.
I guess we can kind of jump.
I don't know.
No, that's the thing. I was like, there's not really like an intro. She's my sister. She's my younger sister. There you go.
Yeah.
We can jump into overall thoughts. Alana, do you want to start?
Yeah, so we'll do some spoiler-free quick thoughts, and then we'll go into the more discussion afterwards. So, like they mentioned, we wanted to talk about it because of the show, because the show season 2 is coming out soon, and we had all seen the show, but then CARA was the one that hadn't read the comic yet. So we're like, our goal is to make people feel more comfortable reading comics, like. Maybe this is like a gateway for her. And so that's why we thought it would be a good one, because she knew she liked the content of the show. So I similarly actually saw the show first. I saw it when it came out. So whatever that was, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I think 2 episodes in was like, okay, wait, hold a minute. And I went and got the book. And I haven't read it since because I got it at a library. So from what I remember, I loved it. I thought it was really cool. It's exactly the kind of book that I always really like. It's my kind of genre, like where they set up this universe and they have this set of rules and there are weird things that go on and you just kind of go, okay, those are the normal weird things that exist. And then here are the like shocking weird things. And they set that up pretty easy, like Mandy said in the synopsis, their first like encounter. Well, the first thing is that all of a sudden it goes from women being like in their regular life to them like being 9 months pregnant in labor, like within a second. So not only do you get thrown off by that and you have to deal with that, but then it pretty quickly, because it's a comic and it's fast paced, then there's 10-year-olds in masks and little uniforms fighting the guy that designed the Eiffel Tower, but the Eiffel Tower is actually a spaceship. And you're like, okay, this is what I'm in. And so it's definitely, if you're not prepared for that kind of ride, it's a little kooky. but for me, I really like it. I really liked the artist. The style of art is quite beautiful to me. You know, it's impossible to translate art style into, of course, like TV shows, like it's different mediums. So if anything, the show, I felt like I was missing kind of like the quirkiness, like how they've drawn some elongated characters. Kind of reminds me at times of like Mike Mignola and how he'll like throw off proportions, and it all feels real. It still exists, but it's kooky. And yeah, I both the show and the book I'm a big fan of, and yeah, that's my first thoughts.
Cara, you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge fan of the show before I ever even like touched the book, but I really like it. The art style is really interesting. I mean, speaking of like the things that I had watched some interviews with Gerard Way, and he had mentioned that part of what he liked about his comic book was that you kind of just drop in, and it's not really about the continuity. It's about just like surprises on every page, and like, yeah, kind of like you said, like that quirky vibe. And I like that about it. I like to like with the show, it kind of picks up in this like the same vibe, but while grounding it a little bit more in a reality that's more familiar. And I think both have their attributes that are good. But yeah, I like them.
So I read. I'm trying to remember. I think I read volume 1 before the show came out, but like just before. I think it was like announced, and I was like, I'm that person. I'm that token person that's like, you have to read it before you watch it, or I try to. So I remember, yeah, I picked it up from the library, and I mean, I think I have all the similar thoughts. I'm really into the weird, quirky, and like at times dark. Like even as fun and as kind of like goofy as some of the art can be, in the best way, it still had like an eerie kind of feel to it. And I think the show does that obviously a little bit better or differently. But yeah, like I mean, it's at its core, I guess, somewhat a superhero, or like they have superpowers and different, right, like abilities, I guess. So that's kind of like the core of it. But I don't know, like the family aspect is always kind of fun. I like those kind of stories where it's like they're dysfunctional and they're, you know, have love-hate relationships with each other. And so like that's I'm a sucker for that kind of story. And I don't know. It's I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. With Gerard Way, as I imagine him to be, this feels like exactly what he would write. Like reading it, I feel I'm picturing him in the made up fictional Gerard Way I've made up in my head, obviously, because I don't know him personally, but it just seems like perfect to character. And like I have read a bit of Doom Patrol and like some of his other work, like in Milk Wars and stuff like that, and it carries on. His quirkiness is throughout. So yeah, overall, it hits all the points that I like in a book, and it was interesting. There's never any slow points, I don't think. Like Cara said, it jumped right in, which is always nice. I don't always appreciate these forever long character building arcs that you need to go through at first, or like world building. And so I think that was kind of cool, and it didn't lack not having that either. I don't think it needed it. So I guess at that, we will probably start going a little bit more spoilery, including a bit of season 1 of the show. But I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. I don't think there's too many spoilers in one that wouldn't be in the other. So if you are worried about spoilers, leave now. If you don't care, if you've read it, if you've watched the show and you're all good, then stick around and we'll chat more about it.
You can always come back later. We're live, but we post this to YouTube so you can watch it later.
Yes.
Chris did say, yeah, he's disappointed that he didn't read it sooner. It's been recommended to me so many times, and he's a big My Chemical Romance fan. Really enjoyed the comic, and now thinking of buying all the hardcovers for sure. There's so many things in my life where I like have resentment that I've spent some of my life not experiencing it, especially when it's recommended to you. It's like somebody told me to, and I didn't, and then I have regrets. Those are probably my only regrets.
Especially when it's like friends that are like, I know you and I know you'd enjoy this. Like, and you're like, God damn it, you were right. I should have listened.
Darn. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, totally the same here. I mean, I don't even know if I realized they were related, like until kind of the show did so well, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's the guy from My Chemical Romance." I don't really remember, honestly. I don't super recall, but it definitely was a really cool experience. And yeah, like Mandy said about the show too. Yeah, there's ways that it made it darker, and there's ways that it changed things. So those were kind of the most interesting. I always like to see that in adaptations because I think you can appreciate something, like you can be like a read the book first, I appreciate the book more kind of person, and then still be like, yeah, but the movie is perfect, you know. And I think especially when it comes to books, maybe more prose than graphic novels, but like, you know, I'd rather sit and watch Lord of the Rings movies than read the books. Like, you know, it gives you the same experience, if not better in certain ways. So with this, it kind of is nice because it's very true. You don't feel like you're like, oh man, like I wish that this had happened, or like this is inconsistent in a way that I don't like. So it was very true to it, but they made the changes they needed to change. You didn't feel like they were also like stuck in this box of like, this is a weird comic. So like you guys said, you do have a little bit more. So like you don't see number one's arms. You don't really understand that he's kind of this like gorilla or Martian or whatever his dad made him into until like it's a reveal, which makes sense in TV. Whereas I think in the comic, it's like the first page, or you're opening up and he's like got his big furry arms in a spacesuit, you know? So it's like, yes, some things work better in certain ways. So I feel like this comic did really good. And I think that that's happening more and more in general with media, is that the people that are doing adaptations are understanding that. The things that we saw kind of growing up, the movies we saw younger, either were their own. So it was like, here's X-Men, but it's not really its own story. Or like it is its own, if they've made up their own thing. Or here's X-Men and it's exactly Days of Future Past, but it looks shitty because it wasn't made to be a movie. You know, things are written a certain way. So that's, I think, something we should give the showrunners props for, because I think they did a great job with that, for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing is like book to movie or TV show adaptations can be different and still both be amazing and still not take away from the other. I think I mean, just because I live a lot in the world of booktube and like readers and stuff like that, and you see that heavily where they want you to choose, like, do you like the book or do you like the movie, right? But I like Hunger Games, and now starting a tangent, but like that's just a quick example, right? Like that's a book to movie that was exceptional, right? And it was close enough without leading too far off of it, but they know how to adapt that story. And I think agree with like comics, right? We can look at stuff like some of the Spider-Man movies, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of one that maybe more recently I wasn't a fan of. I mean, we talked about Hellboy, right? And even that just kind of lost its quirkiness, I feel, in some of the movie adaptations. But I do agree. I think it being the darker tone that it is in the series, it still has its humor. The characters are still just as lovely and weird and quirky and annoying and lovely, but it definitely lends better, I think, to TV than it would in a book. I feel like darker toned comics are a little bit harder to hit the point as well. I know myself being a horror fan, or like fans of those kind of like weirder things, there's a lot less comics I could pinpoint as being like favorites that kind of hit that mark. And so like I didn't need Umbrella Academy, the comic, to be dark, and you know, it has its merits and it has its messed up storyline still. I can't remember, there's not like any gore or anything in the comic, was there?
A little bit, yeah.
My favorite page, and probably in any comic ever, it's my favorite splash page, is issue 5's opening which is called Thanks for the Coffee. And it's a 2-page splash page, and it's where the title is, and it's the whole diner, bloody as fuck, and then this like kid sitting there. That is, it's one of the most stunning pages. They did definitely have violence. There were scenes of violence.
It's been a while.
But because it's cartoonified, it does seem less graphic. I would say every scene that had violence in the show was in the comic. It just wasn't, like you said, it's not quite as impactful. You almost have to go super extreme or go like psychological. So it kind of kept it quirky. And then in the show, they're like, we'll keep these characters whatever, but also, you know, and they were a bit more clear. I mean, because I would say the characters in this had very little time to do any kind of growth. You see these characters feel very hollow in the book, not in a bad way, not in a way that you don't understand that they have their own lives in 3-dimensional. Like you can tell that they are people, but it's just because of how the book's written. The point is not them. It's not them as individuals. It's all of them. So stuff like Klaus's like drug addiction is a huge plot point of the show because they can give it the screen time. Whereas it's like mentioned twice. Like they'll say something like, "Oh, are you not high right now?" And he'll be like, "Oh no," like, you know, like that's it in the comic, or that he was in rehab or something. So, yeah, it's like I'm just basically reaffirming that. Yeah, they changed things for the type of media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really liked how they really took advantage of it. Like obviously they do in a longer form media, but just giving us more background to the characters in the show, and just a lot more depth because the medium is so long form, while also feeling like it stays true to the characters in the graphic novel. So it feels like it still belongs, even though some of the more other or like out there elements of the graphic novel aren't featured. It still feels like the same story and the same characters. I really appreciate about it. Like I think, like I kind of feel like they're like companions. Like, you know, you can have them both. Like Amanda said, you don't have to pick one or the other. They kind of go together.
Totally. And Chris in the comments did say he hasn't seen the show yet. He's not worried about spoilers, but he's curious if the first season is an extended retelling of this volume. Yes, but no.
Yeah, I would. There's definitely touch points of volume 2, I think, in the first season.
So you learn a lot more about who Hargraves is in the show.
Yeah.
You also learn about Cha-Cha
and Hazel are not as prevalent in the volume.
They're not even in the first one.
They're not in it, or they're in the background or something.
I read them back to back, so I couldn't. I think maybe I've read the first 3. I know I've read the first 2 for sure.
I think you still kind of get a glimpse of the company in a sort of way, but you don't get it kind of.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I think in the show, they're introduced like episode 2 or 3. Like, it's really early that you meet Cha-Cha and Hazel,
and
right?
I love them. They're so great.
Yeah. But I don't feel like it took away from or like spoiled anything that you're gonna get to in volume 2, right? Like there's definitely shows. Example, Lock and Key. I have a lot of friends that ask me like, how much should I read before I watch the first season? And I'm like, there's literally points from like volume 5, but like the smallest little, like even just like the keys, right, come into that first season. So it's like, sure, you're going to be spoiled a little bit for the comic. And I can see people having kind of issues with that or trying to decide which to do first. So like with Lock and Key, I would almost recommend you read the whole thing before jumping into the show, right? If you care about that stuff. But with Umbrella Academy, I would say you could easily just read the first volume before watching the first season. Like it's not.
It also was only 2 volumes. It's now 3 plus I think a side story. But it isn't something that's like long. A long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read the second volume, Amanda?
I've read the second one for sure. Yeah. Yeah, Mandy.
Sorry, I read Amanda.
Reveal that. Jeez.
Yeah, no, I read the first 2 back to back. So that's where, And I think I read both before the first season, before watching the first season. So it's kind of hard. Like I said, it was hard for me to pinpoint exactly what was in which one, but I do recall, and even like having conversations with you about it, you're like, oh, this kind of wasn't there, or that wasn't there. And I was like, well, yes and no. Like it makes sense, I think, for the way that they're building, again, like a TV series. I think if you made an entire season on volume 1, it would drag on, or like there's not enough content in the first volume, I think, to make an entire season of television. Not enough that would be eventful, exciting, like not in the Netflix style of TV, right?
Yeah. Yeah, when it comes to that, I would definitely say, like, I think I said this in the article too, like, I would recommend watching the show before you read the book. Personally, just because I find that, like, the whole build-up is more emotionally draining, in a good way, though, like, in the way that you like, right? I don't know. I would really recommend watching the show first, because I feel like if I had read the book first, the ending would kind of be ruined.
That I
even though it's
feel that
very similar, I just
no, again, being the person that always is like, you should read the book before you watch it, or me trying to be. Walking Dead, perfect example, where I was like, I will not read past where I am in the show, because there was something about just like experiencing it on the TV with we'd have like watching parties and stuff like that, right? I wanted to know, and again, they have different things that would happen, but it's like, there's something where it was like, I didn't want to experience that having read it before watching it, and that feels so wrong in everything I believe in. But I completely agree. I think, especially when it's done well, right? There's a certain lead up that is, it can be done in such a beautiful way, I think, when it's visually, as opposed to just, and I mean, visual, comics are visual as well, but you know what you know what I'm saying, right? When it's like kind of a drawn out, like you said, that long form.
You really feel, I mean, this might be too strong of a word, but like the abuse in the show more than in the book. Because again, they just don't really get into who these characters are. And in the show, you almost understand as a viewer, because they kind of reveal that Hargraves might not be of our world or our time. Like there's something odd going about Hargraves himself. And then obviously the kids, something happened to make them be born, and we don't know what it is, but they're all simultaneously, born. Like they're all twin, like they're all the same birth date, whatever. And so we know, without really it even being spoilers for other issues or the show, you kind of know that. And the show kind of makes it a little more obvious. Like there's a whole scene where you're like, is that on Earth? Are you? Or is that a future? Like there's a scene that's quite futuristic, or looks like maybe it's alien. And so that kind of stuff, you can relate as the audience and be like, this is someone who maybe doesn't see these kids as children, or doesn't understand that the way of him parenting isn't the best. But you also know that he creates a mother for them, and he does provide them with education and food and, a household. So like that's more than other kids get. But because he's so weird, and then the things like he does assign them a number based off of their value, basically, to him, is where the numbers come from. So that's why he, like, from the moment he names them, and by naming them I mean gives them a number. Yeah, which I think even Mom does. I think he just refers to them as that, and then the mom robot character, I think they say, well, she named us, but it's like, did she name you? But anyways, they, from the get-go, from the moment these children could think, they're basically being told, you are being compared. You are what your value is to me. And not only that, but of the 7 of you, 1 of you has no value to me. And so that, I mean, you can really relate as you're either reading or watching it to Vanya. And I mean, Ellen Page is just an amazing actress. So I think the show she just really nails it. So I would agree, maybe watch the show first, if you can. But like, you really like, you kind of, yeah, the world is insane and there's weird things, and in the comic, like the whole orchestra people are like very cartoony and comic booky, where it's a bit more realistic in the show. But like you again, you like, yeah, you feel for Hargraves because like, you know that he maybe isn't doing his best, but he is kind of doing his best. He doesn't realize there's a different way, or you assume that. And then with Vanya, you're like, I get it. Like the fact that she didn't snap before then, and then the fact that all her siblings are mad at her for like writing a book, and it's like, that was what she thought her value was. And not only that, but you've lived your whole life. Like, so how could number 1 know how number 7 feels? Like, there's just no way. Like, they were, I mean, it's almost like you could talk about any kind of groups, you know, like, so it's like the strong white man is first. Like, I don't know if that's on purpose, but strong white man is first. And then, you know, you go down this list. I mean, and Vanya is not the most outwardly minority, but, you know, you can think about it that way. It's like, that's how the world is. So whether or not he meant that with what he was saying, but that is, you do inherently just treat people differently because someone tells you that's their value. This person is smart in school, so they deserve this. Whereas this person is disruptive in school, and you just automatically, unconsciously, it's not really your fault, but, you know, so you kind of feel for Vanya as she goes through this. And I would say the show, because it shows so much of her, you really feel that. Whereas in the book, it's kind of just like, she's like at the funeral, and then she's like, I'm done with this.
That's what I really appreciate about the show, is that you especially Vanya, like, she has so much more, you feel so much more compassion for her and sympathy. Where in the graphic novel, her storyline just moves so quickly that there's really no rhyme or reason to why she just decides to go.
Well, that's the thing too, because there's another character in the show that I don't believe is in the book at all, and I forget his name.
Leonard?
He's like Leonard, yeah, he's like a potential love interest to Vanya, and you find out that he actually is born around the same time and on the same dates as these magical children all over the world, which is more than just the 7. It's just that's how many Hargraves could get. So his whole life has twisted his reality. Like, it's a big, I mean, this book is huge on mental health, but like, he has this whole thing about that he almost deserves it, and if he can't have it, no one can, kind of mentality. And so what he does as his form of power is manipulate Vanya, and that happens only in the show. In the book, Vanya acts of her own accord, which is for the same feelings that she acts in the show. But in the show, I think it's a lot clearer visually that she's being led there by someone, which A, makes it a little easier to forgive her at the end, and B, makes it clearer of why she's doing it. Whereas, in the book, it's just kind of feels random, and only until you're kind of introspective about it. And you're like, well, no shit. She's like, wants to destroy the world. She's never had a good world. She doesn't know what this is.
In a book, it's easier to read or understand the character's head or thoughts, right? Because it's written on the page. Right. Whereas opposed to like in TV kind of media, aside from having them narrate it, you need that other character for them to kind of bounce off those thoughts, emotions, that kind of thing. Right. So I think he plays that important character, and I think he was
almost doing like a narration. He was like saying her thoughts out loud, and then being like, haha, but just kidding, you don't feel that way. And she's like, and then you see her.
He's the good and bad, right? He's that like angel devil on her shoulder.
For sure. And he knows what the fuck he's doing. Yeah, and I mean, I believe at the end, we were just kind of discussing this before we went live, but I believe at the end of the comic, it just kind of ends with the events having happened. And in the show, those events happen, and then there's an additional scene where 5 is like, let's go back and try to undo all of this by treating Vanya better from the beginning. That's kind of how I remember the show ending, season 1. And that's right.
Yeah, I assume because you don't watch any trailers or spoilers or anything.
No, I have not seen the new trailer.
No, but they today dropped the
I
first
know.
3 minutes of season 2.
But it's out on Friday, so I can't
Yeah.
keep it.
No, I watched it just before the stream, so I was
Right.
like curious, and they definitely go more into that right away.
Yeah,
Like,
and so that's the thing. It's like it makes sense again in a show. They want to do a cliffhanger. They want you to tune in next season. But again, you get it because they go through that emotional journey too in the show. That maybe again it's not as clear they go through in the book, in which they understand their mistreatment, and not only to her but to themselves. They understand that they have trauma. I mean, I think Ben and Five are like and Klaus. I mean, all of them are like very classic examples of different parts of what trauma can do to you. Which we talked about mental health in comics, and I didn't like instantly think Umbrella Academy, but like just the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, holy shit. Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
All of the cast too, brilliantly casted. Like it was.
Oh my god. Klaus is like my favorite actor. He was in Misfits, and I just loved him. Oof.
Same.
Yeah.
I love him.
Like I could not pick a single, like down to Cha-Cha and Hazel. They're perfect. Like I love everything. Right, all of the characters are.
Did you guys have a favorite character in the comic? Like, was there one of the 7 that you liked the best?
In the comic,
stands out to me.
5 in the comic for you? Yeah, and then Kara.
Rumor and 5 I liked better in the comic, which I like Seance the best in the show. So
in the show,
Rumor was cool. I liked her.
Yeah, I mean, of all those powers, so like I would say 5 overall is my favorite, for sure, just because I think it's so cool, the idea that he's like 65, like in his, or like whatever, 60 in his brain, and he's like lost the plot, but he also is clearly extremely smart, because I think his power even works in kind of a physics realm, right? And that's where Hargraves is like, not that you can't do this, but we need to train you up intellectually to understand how to teleport through time and blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, fuck you, Dad, I'm going to go forward in time. And then he gets stuck there, you know, like, so I like that idea that he is trainable in a more obvious way, right? Whereas Rumor's so cool. I think that's the best power. But how do you like train someone to be better at that? More clever with your words, more specific with your rumors. Like, there's no way to increase that power. You know what I mean? Anyways, number 5 for sure. And then I think all of us liked Seance. Like, there's no way. But I loved in the show too. Sorry, Ben. I did love Ben. I don't remember him being in the book because he's dead, obviously. So I just thought that was lovely that they were able to have him be there, by having Klaus see him. So I did quite like that, because I think he's really cute, but also I love him. And I love the idea in the book. It's very clear that him and Vanya are likely suffering the most actual trauma, like actively living it, whereas like Rumor experiences it later when she uses her powers on her child. Like, that's where she really gets that trauma to hit her. And it isn't until number 1 they're even like, oh, you've always been the bootlicker. It's because he never has come to terms with what he's experienced until the plot of this, right? And then obviously Klaus is dealing how he has to deal. That's the worst power, man. Not being able to control it, just the worst power. Anyways, okay, so what power? If you could pick one of the 7 powers. And I'm telling you, and you have at least a basic level to control them.
You're not.
So even with Vanya, you still it could be more like Havoc in X-Men, where he can scream and target a section. I'm not just saying
hers is cool. I don't know if I personally would want to have that, but I do think it plays really well.
Probably.
You would? Sorry, what did you say?
I like number 5's powers the best if I could have any of them.
Yeah.
Because as much as Rumor is cool, you would never know if anybody was being honest with you. You know, I don't know, because you could just tell them what to think, right? It's kind of weird. it would affect you, I think, psychologically after a
See,
while.
but I would love it to be like, I would like try to get into press conferences and be like, I heard a rumor that you have to tell the truth, or so, like I would love to like have like, in a perfect world, obviously,
the devil's
you would
advocate.
totally start abusing it. You would 100% start abusing it. But in my mind, in a perfect world, to just be like, you know, you can't, Mr. President, you can't actually tell any secrets. Like, you know, like, and then it's people's own downfall from there, right? Like, not necessarily manipulating them to, which is funny because it's all based off of her lies. Like, when she says a lie, when she says, I heard a rumor, which is made up, they then do it. So it's funny that I'm trying to get people to be honest using a power that is based on lies. But that's why I think it would be really cool. Because I think you could do active good without being expected to, like, fight.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have to agree with 5. Probably. His seems like the most useful.
Yeah.
Maybe, or fun. Because the other ones seem like they could get you into trouble. Or like, I don't know how often I would need. I mean, the seances is kind of cool. Weird.
I mean, we haven't really talked about Diego at all because he just basically is
good at throwing knives.
Spider-Man. Well, he's like super agility, crazy aim, you know, like crazy fast reflexes, and then possibly some kind of item manipulation. Like if we throw something, he can kind of manipulate. I think he can like curve it and stuff with his mind. So it's like his intention, whatever his intention is, it will like hit. I do think that's really cool. And again, if you don't put yourself in a situation in which you are throwing knives,
that's the thing.
You wouldn't like trip and fall ever. You wouldn't like, you know.
Those powers make sense if I'm out fighting crime or trying to like do good or whatever, right? Then sure. If I'm living in their world, there's there's better powers to have. Me,
Chris said Pogo is his favorite.
I'm like, whatever, then I just want the fun power that 5 has. I mean, it's also problematic, right? But
yeah, it's all bad. But Chris said Pogo's his favorite. You know what, same. Because that's not problematic. I'll just be a genetically modified monkey. It's fine.
I'm looking at the comics a lot too. I think he's pretty cool in the comics.
Yeah, I mean that was probably I would say that moment is much more impactful in the book than the show. Of all the moments when I would say anything Vanya does actually, when she actually starts to take things out reacting. So that moment, and then the rumors mouth, which is crazy because I'm like, then she's powerless. I don't know. I'm very excited for season 2. Then so I even remember reading it. I think I must have read it before the show or something, because I remember trying to Google what Ben's power was, because you only see him when he's 10 use his power, and then they're like he died, like, and you don't really know when. So I mean his is quite interesting, but again he's got like extreme trauma over it because he has to like, pull himself into another dimension, pull a monster out with him, and then that monster like uses his body, is basically, so he's like going into like Lovecraftian dimensions and pulling out like the most grotesque monsters. So that's why he will like have tentacles coming out of them and stuff. It's not that he's shape-shifting, it's that he's literally bringing in other, and it's like Trump, and then like he walks out in blood and he's like like, it's like, oh, that poor kid. I mean, again, abuse, like putting these children through this, like not okay to all of them. Cool. So
because there's like what, 43 kids that were born,
something like that, and then quite a few died.
43 children are born on the same day. So, and I don't think, I could be wrong, and again I don't think I've read the 3rd volume. That sitting there as like a fact definitely makes my mind wander, right? Because then you're like, who are these other kids? What are they like? Did they get powers? Why did this? You know what I mean? Like, well,
especially because Hargrave's manipulation-wise, money-wise, resource-wise, could have gotten these kids. So why only 7?
I think, hang on,
Like,
I
was that
missed this
Hargrave's
one.
choice, or was that because he says he's only able to get, I think is how maybe it's the show.
Yeah.
It's like in the end he gets 7. Is it that
Yeah.
the
When
parents
asked
are going
why
to give
he adopted the 7 to save the world. So it's like, did he? Because that's the thing too. Is like, do we know if it had something to do with the women having these babies? Did he?
I don't think we know much, right?
Okay.
At
That's
least
the
in
theory.
book 1, yeah.
I don't think book 2 had some, unless I just spoiled something. But I don't think I honestly don't think it did.
I mean, my theory, and I don't actually remember if I've read book 2. I definitely own it, and book 3. So this is hopefully not spoilers because I sometimes get pretty good with theories. But like my thing is like it's like the effect of like if one thing, man, I've been reading Attack on Titan, and I've been messaging Missy about it. This is what we read last week. CARA and viewers, we read Attack on Titan Volume 1, and I was like, I gotta read it all. And so I'm on issue like 18 now, and I'm addicted to it. And so Missy, who was on last week, is my best friend, and she has read the book 1,000 times, seen the show 1,000 times. And I'm literally texting her stuff, and then I flip a page, and like it happens. And I was like, how am I this good at predicting anyways? But then there was like 1 or 2 that I was like, wait, what? Like shocked. Anyways, so my prediction, or not really a prediction, but it's kind of the idea of because there's multiple dimensions and time travel exists. Like both of these things are facts in this world. And so it's kind of the idea of like if there's one moment where these dimensions cross in time and like things slip through, maybe Hargraves showed up in the reality. Like if you've seen the OA, I'm thinking the same thing where like they show up and they're in their bodies that have existed in the world, but suddenly their consciousness is a different consciousness. So it's not that they just pop into existence, it's that they pop into existence. So I wonder if in one dimension Hargraves was like a rich eccentric dude, and in one existence he was like an alien or something. Like I don't know, but I wonder if there was a moment that the dimensions blipped, and maybe multiple times, or maybe from that moment there's butterfly effect, or maybe it was exactly that date and time that all those women, maybe Hargraves also blipped into existence, and maybe their powers have to do with them being kind of cross-dimensional beings, right? And so maybe these 43 women in another dimension were pregnant. Maybe that's what it is that all of a sudden their bodies flipped instead of their consciousness. Like, I'm just wondering, I'm just kind of thinking out loud about my assumptions, but
he obviously knew something was special about these babies past them just being born immaculately, right?
And that they discussed the whole time, did he know? Did he know about the apocalypse? And it becomes pretty clear, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, is he from the future? Is he an alien? Or is there some kind of multi-dimensional? And then is there a blend, right? So
in the comic book, it says that he's a space alien, but it doesn't go much further than that. So it kind of goes into like when he came to Earth and stuff. I won't go too much into it, but yeah, no explanation as to how he knew about the kids or he didn't acquire some of them. So I wonder if
I kind of like that. You know, you don't need every answer.
That's the thing, and that's what kind of Gerard Way was saying in the interviews, is that he likes to introduce these things that are kind of like opening present, right? And you don't necessarily know what's going on. That's cool.
I think I read too when he pitched the comic, he did little doodles of the characters too to go along with it to like sell it to them.
They're in the back of the book, yeah.
They're good. Yeah, I love them. That's one of the things that I like most about having the book, is having his original drawings to kind of like look at. It's pretty cool. Being a huge Gerard Way fan.
I know. It's like I feel like we have to talk about Gerard Way in some level this evening. But I remember when my first touchstone to knowing he was writing comics, I was at a convention and saw a comic that was like signed by Gerard Way. And I remember just being like, that's not like a super common name. And so I remember asking someone, I was like, is this like MCR Gerard Way? And they're like,
Right.
yeah. And I was like, he writes comic books? Like, not that I followed MCR from them.
When you were a young boy and your father took you into the city.
To see a marching band?
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I loved, me and my sister used to jam to that as we got ready in the mornings, right? Like,
hardcore about the MCR.
Yeah, and so I was like, but again, I was like, I didn't think anything of it, follow his career past the band or anything like that. So, and even being, I was at conventions, like, I can't remember. We keep doing the math. I feel like it's been like 10-ish years, 11 years that I've been going.
It's been 11 for you and 10 for me.
Okay. So I was like, all of that time being at conventions and like, reading comics. Again, I got really back into comics probably 8 years ago, because it was like while I was pregnant with Jackson, I think. But yeah, like, I feel like I only kind of became aware of it. I think it was like a Milk Wars variant or something that was signed by him. And I was like, what? So, but that's enough. Again, I feel, again, the made up Gerard Way in my head, as I imagine him, and is that like weird, quirky emo boy, right? So that makes me want to read his comic books. And I think we can talk about like other books we would recommend, but 100% Doom Patrol, the Doom Patrol stuff that he's written is very similar. It's that weird, quirky kind of build, these fun characters. I know Doom Patrol is not his original stuff,
No.
but the stuff that I've read, what he's written, I think like the first 2 volumes I think I've read. And yeah, I would if you like Umbrella Academy the way that he writes, I think you'd like Doom Patrol.
Yeah, Kara, did you have anything that you were reminded of, or you were like, oh, I know this person likes this, so they would actually probably like Umbrella Academy? Do you have any other recommendations?
Okay, it doesn't have to be comics. It could be books or movies or TV, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not a comic person, so I don't have any comic recommendations. It did kind of give me like a dystopian Heroes feel, sort of. So I think if you like Heroes, you probably like it. It's a more like adult version, sort of. It's pretty unique. I know like another thing that Gerard Way had said in some of the interviews was that he tries to find a gap in the market, basically, like with his music as well, and fill it. Like, so he didn't see anything that was quite so crazy and dark, so he just was like, I'm gonna make it though. So I don't know. There's nothing that really comes to mind for me, but
I think Heroes.
Heroes is a great recommendation, for sure. Yeah, and I think you are right, but what he was saying about finding the gap, for sure, like when this was released is really when we saw the big boom into not just Image, but other smaller publications.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I can't think of another one like this that was a superhero team, but it wasn't Marvel or DC. It clearly is kind of a bit of a love of X-Men. You can tell that this person kind of you have to be aware of who X-Men are and that they're kids with mutant abilities in a world where not everyone has those abilities. And are they ostracized? Are they kept secret? Are they whatever? And so I kind of like that this is my argument all the time because I don't like the big 2 very much, is because I get sick of the same characters with the same character traits doing kind of slightly different, but basically the same story. To me, I'm like, yeah, if you like X-Men and you want more X-Men that's not X-Men, read this. Like, it's still kids, but instead it's like age 10, boom, here they are. These are their names. These are their powers. They're now public figures, and then they read a book about it. It felt like a more modern take. It felt like, more grounded in now. Like, it was released in 2007. It feels more 2007 than many X-Men have ever felt and I love X-Men, don't get me wrong. But, so yeah, X-Men is one. Heroes, I think, is great. What else was I thinking? Many Image and Dark Horse and things like that. Even, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't want to say, I don't know, it's weird because I feel like Scott Pilgrim, no, there's nothing in common at all. but it's so stylized in a way that if you like that it's like quirky and weird, like you might like that. But then on the flip side, maybe Rat Queens, because they kind of just get thrown in and they have characters that are just doing adventures and you just go and do it. I'm sure I'll think of another one at the end of the stream. But no, I think Heroes is really good.
I know, that sounds like, dang, that is a good one.
Yeah, that's kind of what it made me think of right off the hop there.
Oh, great. And Heroes has a comic series that did quite well. I've never read it. I don't know. It even, like, I even want to go, like, a series of unfortunate events, because, like, they're also, like, children that are abused, and not that they have powers, but one is really smart, and one is a crazy inventor, and then one chews really well. You know,
that fits really well for the 2 Netflix series. Like,
yeah, the style too. Yeah,
style.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the other thing. Like, if you like Shein and you like the Umbrella Academy, check out Misfits, because it's excellent and also has superhero kids.
Yeah, Misfits.
So good one too. Plus, yeah, Robert Sheehan is just
Robert Sheen's in the first 2 or 3 seasons.
And
kind of. Yeah, it's the first 2 seasons. Same with the kid from the guy that would flay people, Bolton, in Game of Thrones. He plays like the opposite character, so it's really cool to see. He's like the quietest, shyest, most like babyest. Exactly, lovable for sure. So yeah, you'll see a few people you like. It's British. It's pretty. It's like Skins mixed with this. If you've ever seen Skins.
And like give it a chance. If you don't like the first episode, give it a chance, because it's so good. It gets so good.
Yeah.
Huge fan.
For sure. Cool. So, Chris did say that he's supposed to be seeing My Chemical Romance in Toronto next year, but hoping COVID is done by then. And then he's asking what our favorite or the best My Chemical Romance album is.
Okay.
I had to ask if Black Parade was them or Green Day. Like, I started singing it, and then I had that moment where you're like, wait, am I wrong? So I knew it was them, but I didn't know it was them, so I don't know. I know, like, 3 My Chemical Romance songs.
3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
I was really going to say 3 Cheers is probably my favorite album.
I mean, to be the emo kid that I was, I brought you my bullets, you brought me your love. Thumbs up. Check that one out.
That was their first one, right?
That was their first album, I believe. Yeah, it's got so many good songs, and they kind of, what I really love about a lot of MCR songs is they kind of have like a comic booky storytelling feel within the songs.
Even the music videos feel very.
Did a lot of the art for like the albums as well. Like I think 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, she does the album art for it as well. Yeah, like emo kid, listen to the first one. Good.
It's the emo indie kid in you. It's like, I listened to the first album.
I mean, I just
what I'm saying. Early Sons over Monroeville, super good song.
I just had to look, like, I'm just looking them up, and Black Parade was the age and the like phase of my emo phase, so it makes sense that that album is the one that I like looking at the discography. I'm like, oh no, wait, I do know most of these songs. So, but I was a little bit more Simple Plan, like more Warped Tour versus like emo.
More pop punk?
Yeah, like Blink-182, AFI. I guess that's pretty emo.
AFI is pretty emo.
And that came a little later. I mean, I went through phases for sure, but
like,
I definitely.
I mean, I never looked like an emo kid. I think if anything, I was more like skater kid trying to be, right? Like
I was emo kid.
CARA was full emo. She had black hair and everything.
Chris agrees. 3 Cheers is his choice as well, and it is a perfect album. So
I feel like overall has the best hits throughout, but also I think that was my first MCR album. Like, I think that's when both. Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I think that's when we got into it, and then you probably would have went back to the other.
Well, I mean,
yeah. I mean, I'm not sorry. I'm looking at its discography now. Yeah, I know all of. Like, I'm not okay and Helene.
Those are like the bigger hits, because I feel like once it got to Black Parade, that was like when they were kind of like coming down, like less people were listening and jamming to them.
They went a little more poppy with Black Parade, I felt like. I don't know. But they still had some good songs on it. I always will love like the na 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 na, that one from their album after Black Parade. I can't remember the album. I think it's the Killjoys or something like that. But yeah, they're great.
Cool. I originally really disliked Black Parade, but learned to love it. I feel like such an outsider. Like, I mean, again, do you call them emo bands like Fall Out Boy, right? And then the start of Panic at the Disco. Like, that's the age that I was able to, like, look up music and start buying it, and I'm all hormonal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, Fall Out Boy is my jam. But even that, I think it was, like, Under the Cork Tree. Like, it was, like, their second or third album. So I know even I was a bit late to that. I've retroactively listened, but I'm just trying to think, like, you have to think, like, so Black Parade came out in 2006. I was 13, you know, so.
And I graduated high school that year.
Right. So sorry that I'm a baby.
I was like, I feel like my like heavier emo was probably junior high to first year or two of high school, I'd say.
I got really into techno in junior high. Like techno. Like, because EDM wasn't really a thing yet. So, like, I listened to Tiesto, but it was, like, techno. Anyways. Now I'm looking Fall Out Boy. I mean, we're pretty much done here, but I gotta know.
So it's like Under Oath, right? That's a band. I mean, feeling crazy.
Is that a religious band? Or am I wrong?
I'm trying to know right now.
I really liked Reliant K or whatever, and then I found out they were like a Christian band. Yeah.
The Used was great too.
The Used, that's what I was trying to think of. I don't know why I was thinking Under Oath. The Used, I love the Used.
MCR combo songs were great. Like their cover of Under Pressure. I think it's really good. Under Pressure.
Yes, I also love Under Pressure.
Yeah, no, and then I was like, probably a bit got more into the punk pop, whereas that's all kind of like emo pop.
Like Hawthorne Heights. Do you remember Hawthorne Heights? Theirs was the most emo. Let's be real. Ugh.
I don't know. There was like this thing on the internet. Now, full tangent of the emo kid. There was this challenge or whatever. And it was like, if you know more than 3 of these songs, you were an emo kid. And so Adam and I listened to it. And it was like 10 songs, every single one. I was like, how do you not know this song? Like, because even like they were putting like Paramore was more the like kind of emo kid, like, right?
No, see, that's Warped Tour. Like that's like, there's some emo elements, but it's not like
but
that's
it's
like
not pop punk still. I'd say it's even more so punk than it would be pop punk. Like pop punk is,
but I like
and Fall Out Boy. Like that Simple Plan is the definition of pop punk if you look it up. Like it's and Americans probably don't know Simple Plan. I'm trying to think. It's Canadian. Did they get over there? Okay.
I think so. They were on Hit List.
Oh, that's a good job. Hit List. Amanda, are you too young for Hit List on YTV?
On Much Music?
No, YTV.
Okay, wait. Sorry, we're gonna go late talking about emo albums. 17 albums. My Google search was emo bands in 2005, and I got a BuzzFeed article saying 17 albums that proved 2005 was actually the golden era of emo. So let's take a look. So May, The Everglow, Jack's Mannequin. Oh, I love Dark Blue. Come on, that's not emo, is it? But Jack's Mannequin, Everything in Transit.
Emo is emotional. It's those songs about like being depressed and like that's emo. Emo
I
is
still
not
sing Dark Blue like randomly. It like pops in my head and I'm like Dark Blue, Dark Blue. Coheed and Cambria, Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 5, Volume 1 From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. Emery, The Question. Cartel, Chroma. The Academy Is, I remember them, Almost Here. Because they were basically like Fall Out Boy, but they weren't. Motion City Soundtrack, also remember them. Commit to Memory. This was more indie punk spirit, it says. Bayside, The Rocket Summer, that love of my life. Love of my life. I know every word to every Rocket Summer song. The Fall of Troy, Doppelganger, Acceptance, Phantoms, Bright Eyes, classic, Digital Ash, and a Digital Urn. Paramore, we all know a feeling. Paramore was very punk before. I love their new album. The Spill Canvas, classic, One Fell Swoop. Death Cab for Cutie, come on.
That's my favorite.
That's where I'll Follow You from the Dark came from.
Mm-hmm.
And what Sarah said. Thrice, I don't know who this is.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Anne Berlin, Never Take Friendship Personal.
Taking Back Sunday and Brand New.
Yeah, I'm looking at the comments.
That wasn't a great thing.
I feel like 2005 was probably my phasing out of emo music. I mean, I still had touchstones, but like I would have been grade 11. I'm aging myself, but I feel like grade 10, that was my hot spot probably.
Yeah, like no, 9th grade for me was when it really hit the fan.
So
or
I remember being in love with Skater Boys and thinking I was an emo kid.
You said See You Later Boys?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one says AFI Dashboard Confessional, Love of My Life. Simple Plan, Brand New, Jimmy Eat World, Love of My Life. Taking Back See, these are the ones I know. Taking Back Sunday, Sugar Cult, I don't know. Braid, Motion City Soundtrack, Piebald, I don't know that. Newfound Glory, Hells Yes. The Get Up Kids, The Used. Thursday, Yellow Card, come on.
You wouldn't look at Yellow Card or listen to their music and think it's emo, but I think because of when they hit big, right? That's the best place they would have fit in, right? And again, I think
the next one is All American Rejects.
All American Rejects. Yeah.
That's not an emo band, but I'll take it.
But it's like that was that genre at that time when they were coming out. Indie alternative was kind of having a different moment, right?
Yeah. We the Kings, All Time Low, Panic at the Disco, Something Corporate, The Spill Canvas, Hawthorne Heights, At the Drive-In, The Ataris. Those are it.
Ataris.
There's a lot that I haven't thought of in years that I'm just like, wow, I better look at.
I know. That's what I'm listening to right now.
I too often go on emo kid tangents where I just will like, Alexa, play early 2000s emo.
You do it when you're cleaning a lot.
I do when I'm cleaning.
Started doing,
I always have to listen to music when I clean, but I always want that. It's like 90s alternative rock and early 2000s emo. Like that's what I need to listen to.
He said, I'm surprised I haven't heard All American Rejects listed yet unless I missed it. Never mind. Swing, swing, swing. Also, House Bunny, which is a pretty dang good movie. It holds up pretty well. The love interest in House Bunny is the lead singer of All American Rejects. So they use like 9 All American Rejects songs. So probably out of all the bands we just listed, that's the one I've heard most recently because we watched House Bunny like a month ago.
Such a random watch.
With that, it's my sister's favorite movie, and she was talking about it, and I was like, I should watch that again. It's got like Emma Stone and stuff. I don't know.
Totally. I remember jamming to that. Anna Faris, right?
Yeah, Anna Faris, Emma Stone. You got Rumor Willis, like Bruce Willis's kid. You've got a bunch of people. The girl that's in Two Broke Girls. The shorter one. Yeah. A few other. The Catherine McPhee, I think, is the pregnant one. Yeah, which I quite like her. Anyways, okay, we are over time. We got off on our tangent of emo. So go. I actually have bangs now. I've never actually had bangs. I should just say. I definitely have my 8th grade yearbook picture. My hair is so dark purple. It looks black. And I'm wearing a headband that has skulls on it. And I put a Hello Kitty Band-Aid across the headband. So like wrapped around the headband. And I don't have mascara on, but I have liner all around my eyes. Not like crazy raccoon, but like enough. And then I'm not wearing mascara. So, and no eyebrows, because that wasn't a thing. Maybe I was wearing foundation, but like no, you didn't contour. You just put foundation on and you're like, okay, done. And it's like, you just made your face one color. Anyways, I definitely have that picture. I could probably share that.
I was just gonna say, I was like, I have my skater emo kid picture, and I'll post.
Oh my god! Yeah, let's put them on Twitter or something. Okay. Kara, can you try to find one?
I will. Oh, I've got the best ones.
Okay,
many.
All right. So we're gonna go be angsty and yell at our parents because they don't understand. But I guess final thoughts is great read, great show. We all say both are great. Mandy, would you agree? Watch the show first, or it's up to you?
I think yeah. I think if we're talking about the like harder hitting moments and wanting to experience that on the TV, sure, yeah, I agree for something like this.
And Kara wrote a great article, so that is in Near Mid today. So if you go down to the description box below, we do have the website as well as our Instagram and Twitter. As we said, we will be posting our emo phases on Twitter once we can find those images. So definitely follow us there. Follow us on Instagram and subscribe to the newsletter or check it out on the website below. I've also included Kara's Instagram down below. She does beautiful makeup looks. Mandy and I were very concerned about today because we're like, we have to look cute. She's going to have the best makeup, and she did. So thanks for that. No, I'm just but she does really amazing makeup looks, and so you should check her out if you want, and her Instagram is down below. And next week we are reading Invincible, which is a book by, is it Robert Kirkman, right? That's why it's like a big deal?
I think so.
Yeah. Anyways, it is a superhero book, but it is published by a indie publisher. So similarly, like we might end up reading it and being like, you know what, reminded me of Umbrella Academy. So if you liked this book, it might be a good one to join us to read next week as well. We will be joined by a guest, and it will be Kyle Higgins. You may know Kyle Higgins because he does write for many different comic book publishers. He has written a lot for Power Rangers, and then he has some of his own works, Cowl and Heldren's Wall. I'll have more information next week, and he'll talk.
And Ultraman is coming out soon.
And yeah, and he's got a few other, I don't know what I could talk about, so I'm not going to say it, but some really, really massive projects. So if you don't know who he is yet, you probably will soon. So make sure to tune in if you want to chat with us and Kyle next week. Tommy will be back next week as well. And I think that's all I got. So happy reading. And anything final, Kira?
No. Watch the show first, I say. So.
Sweet. And Betty, classic send-off.
We want to see all of your emo kid pictures, so tag us in them on Twitter.
Bye, guys.
Bye.